SCHD, the Schwab US Dividend Equity ETF, is one of the most popular dividend ETFs out there. It has a higher than normal dividend yield, a phenomenal history of dividend growth, and solid share price appreciation. And while SCHD currently has a pretty nice starting dividend yield, sitting at about 3.57%, people don't buy it for the dividend yield that it has right now. People buy it for the dividend that it's going to be paying in 10, 20, or even 30 years in the future. So in this video, we're going to be looking at 3 different scenarios to predict what SCHD's dividend payout will be in 2055 and to calculate what your potential yield on cost could be. Now, in order to model out the future SCHD dividend payments, we need to see how the fund has done historically. How fast have they been growing those dividends? So what I've done is plugged in every single SCHD dividend in history into this spreadsheet so we can look at things like the quarter-over-quarter growth, the total yearly dividends, and the year-over-year growth. If we scroll all the way to the bottom, we can see the first year that SCHD was operating, it paid out about 27 cents in dividends, and that was in 2012. If we fast forward to now, at the end of 2024, it paid out about 99.44 cents in dividends. That's a 3.68x increase. So the dividend has been growing at a rapid rate, and if we look at the most recent year of dividend growth, it was sitting at 12.23%. That's a very high dividend growth rate. If we come over here, we can see the average yearly dividend growth since inception came in at 11.57%, and the average yearly dividend growth since 2018 was about 13%. So yes, the fund does have a decent starting dividend yield, but the dividend growth has been massive. So if we break this down to year by year, we can see the vast majority of years we have double-digit dividend growth, with the highest being in 2019 when the fund increased their dividend payouts by nearly 20%. And then if we look at the lowest year, it was just in 2023 at about 3.77% in dividend growth. But keep in mind, the 4 years prior to that were absolutely massive, and the following year was huge at 12.23%. And even with 2023 coming in at 3.77%, like we just saw, the average yearly dividend growth since 2018 was above 13%. So let's go ahead and look at 3 different scenarios to see how much SCHD will be paying out in dividends in 2055. So to start off, let's assume a best case scenario for SCHD, and we'll assume they're able to maintain that 13% dividend growth level they've seen since 2018. If we come over here, let's plug in 13% and hit enter. Again, in 2024, they paid out 99.44 cents in dividends. If we scroll down, again, assuming 13% dividend growth, we can see by the year 2035, that would jump all the way up to $3.81 per share, which would be 3.84 times higher than the current dividend payout. If we scroll down, we can see by 2045, they'd be paying out $12.94, which is 13 times higher than the current dividend payout. And by 2055, this is ridiculous. The dividend payout would be $43.95, which is 44 times higher than the current dividend payout. That is the power of compounding. And here's what's interesting. Look at the yield on cost. 2035 yield on cost would be 13.7%. 2045 yield on cost, 46.5%. 2055, 157%. So again, yield on cost is telling us the return we're going to get on our original investment based on the dividends we're currently receiving. So a yield on cost of 157.9% means that if we made a one-time $100 investment, by 2055, SCHD would be paying us over $157 every single year. And what's even more impressive is this entire model doesn't even take into account if we reinvest those dividend payments. If that's done, that dividend would be far, far higher. Now let's look at our second scenario. Maybe dividend growth will be even lower. This time we'll say it's going to be about 9.5%. And let's look at our results. If we scroll down, we can see by 2035, the dividend payout would be about $2.70 per share, which is about 2.7 times higher than the current dividend. Scroll down, by 2045, the dividend would be $6.68, meaning it'd be about 6.7 times higher than it currently is. And if we look at 2055, that dividend payout would be about $16.57, almost 17 times higher than the current dividend payout. So if we look at our yield on cost, 2035, yield on cost is about 9.7%. That's really good. 2045, 24%, and 2055, almost a 60% yield on cost. So yes, it's definitely lower in this scenario, but that's still phenomenal performance. A 60% yield on cost is very, very good. I don't know anybody that wouldn't want to get paid $60 a year for every $100 they invested. But now let's bump down our dividend growth just a little bit lower. In this scenario, let's say they get about 8% dividend growth, which again, if we look at SCHD's history, the vast majority of years, it's far higher than 8%. But in this scenario, we can see by 2035, SCHD would be paying out $2.31, which would be about 2.3 increase from their current dividend payout. So honestly, still a pretty good start. If we scroll down, 2045, about $5 in dividends, which is about 5 times higher than the current dividend payout. And then by 2055, the dividend payout would be close to $11, almost 11 times higher than the current dividend payout. So we can see our yield on cost here: 2035, 8.3%, 2045, close to 18%, and 2055, close to 39%. So that's still a very good yield on cost, but no doubt significantly lower than our mid to best case scenarios. So regardless of the scenario we look at, the outcome seems pretty good. So yes, people love that high starting dividend yield with SCHD sitting at 3.57%, but the real magic happens when you actually focus on the potential yield on cost you could get from this fund. If you want to play with this spreadsheet to plug in your very own projections, I'll leave a link down in the description for it so you can use it for free. So all in all, I think it's very likely we could see SCHD's dividend in 2055 be 20 times higher than the current dividend. In order for that to be the case, it'd need a dividend growth rate of about 10.2%, which is obviously very high, but it is something that SCHD has achieved somewhat easily over the past 12 years. Now, if you're wondering how SCHD was able to achieve such a high dividend growth rate, I suggest you check out this video. It's a very in-depth breakdown of SCHD and how the fund operates. That video will also point things out, for example, like how the Dow Jones US Dividend 100 Index, which is the underlying index that SCHD follows, has actually outperformed the S&P 500 over different long periods of time. Now, past performance isn't an indicator of future performance, we know that, but the reality is SCHD has performed very well over the long term. And if you're looking for a fund that's going to continue to pay out more and more in dividends to you every single year, then SCHD is a great option, and I'm perfectly happy continuing to hold it as one of the largest positions in my portfolio. As the long-term goal of my portfolio is to one day live off dividends, SCHD will help me achieve just that. Now, like always, if you'd like to be able to download my portfolio tracker and be able to automatically import stock financials straight into your spreadsheet, then you can head over to tickerdata.com at the link in the description. But go ahead and let me know how much you think SCHD will pay out in dividends in the year 2055 in the comments down below. But with all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.